Hello and welcome to The Money Trench, the music industry podcast with me, Mark Sutherland. It was another big week with South by Southwest London, so let's get into another deep conversation about the music industry. The Money Trench is supported by SOUNDON. SOUNDON is TikTok's all-in-one music distribution and promotion platform for artists and labels. Go to soundon.global to find out more and check out the SOUNDON Track of the Week in the TMT newsletter. And the Money Trench is also supported by TIXEL, the honest ticket exchange and waitlist, helping artists own their audience and protect fans from touts. Go to tixel.com to find out more and check out the TIXEL Gig of the Week in the TMT newsletter. And we support Earth%, the music industry's climate foundation. Check earthpercent.org to find out more. And this week, we're joined by a true legend of the live industry. She's one of the most successful booking agents in the world, working with huge artists from Katy Perry to Red Hot Chili Peppers and Kylie Minogue to Muse. She's also a MITS winner, a Strat winner, and she's chair of the board of trustees for Nordhoff and Robbins, looking after this year's landmark 50th anniversary O2 Silver Clef Awards. Please welcome the co-head of global touring at CAA, the one and only Emma Banks.
Hello.
Hello, Emma. Welcome to the show. How's your music week been?
The music week's been pretty good so far. You know, the TfL throw a tube strike at us, which messes things up. I had to get the most expensive cab in the world to get to a lunch yesterday, but it was worth it. Okay. So that was okay. I had a lovely lunch with Dennis Desmond, where I think we thought it was going to last a couple of hours, and we were still there at almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So
proper old school music industry
lunch.
Proper
old school music industry lunch. Covered a lot of ground. Had a good chat. Yeah, it's nice when we're both so busy. You don't see each other so often. So when you get somebody in a room, it's like, right, and another thing, and let's talk about this. And it was good.
Excellent stuff. And are you into festival season already?
I was at the Mighty Hoopla on Saturday. Beautiful weather, just such a great vibe there. So wonderful. Lily Allen headlined. It was the first headline festival event that she's done with the West End Girl show, which you've probably heard about, but it's basically her singing and performing the album start to finish. There's no chat or interaction with the audience. There's no other songs. That's what she does. And it is spectacular. She's just done a remix of one of the tracks with Jade, which has gone down really well. And Jade came on. So it was one of those I was there moments. It was very special.
Fantastic stuff. I wasn't there, but I could hear it from my back garden. So
you could probably hear my moaning and groaning as I had to walk from Brockwell Park to Brixton after the show.
That's not actually very far, Emma.
You don't think it is, I tell you. For someone that's had a hip replacement, it felt like quite a long way.
Well, it can be a long way. Anywhere can be a long way in South London. But great stuff. Let's see what the rest of the Music Biz has been up to with our roundup of the latest industry headlines. And our first story comes from Access All Areas, which says London is set for a record-breaking summer of live music. The Mayor of London's office says gigs from the likes of Harry Styles, Bruno Mars, Take That and Metallica will attract 7.5 million visitors and inject around £2.7 billion into the London economy. Sadiq Khan says the figures prove London is the undisputed capital of live music. I'm not sure what they'll say about that in a few other places, but Emma, sounds like you're in for a busy summer. Absolutely.
It's great, isn't it? I think what's really interesting as well is the breadth of musical talent. You know, when you go from Metallica, System of a Down to Bruno Mars, Harry Styles, Bon Jovi, Garth Brooks at Hyde Park, Lorde in Victoria Park, Tyler the Creator, there really is something for everybody. And that's at the very top end. And of course, you've also got Ariana at the O2. Olivia's just done 4 shows at the O2. She's got Olivia Dean, another 2 to come. Lily's doing 3 shows at the O2. So across the O2, Wembley, all of the indoor venues, and then all of the outdoor pop-ups, be it Finsbury Park or Crystal Palace or Gunnersbury, it's immense. I mean, the fact that so many of them are doing so well is a testament, I think, to great artists, great promoters, and a fantastic population in London and beyond, because people travel here, obviously. that want to go out, that want to have some fun and hopefully not get rained on.
Well, good luck with that. But I mean, it does seem to just keep on growing, doesn't it? What's behind this boom, particularly in the top end? Stadium shows used to be quite rare, didn't they? But,
They did. I mean, I don't know what is behind the boom. I suppose if you look at still how relatively young the music, the live music industry is, my parents' era didn't really go to a lot of concerts. It was more rare. You're starting people much earlier. You've got audiences at Sabrina Carpenter, Ariana Grande, Katy Perry, whoever, the multiple artists, where kids are going to gigs at 5, 6, 7 years old. And I think once you start and you get a taste for it and you realize it's not scary, it's not dangerous, all of these things, then you keep doing it throughout your life. And so we have a larger percentage of the population that want to go to shows. I think you also have more tourism for it. People will fly wherever. If you look at Harry Styles, his shows are in London and in Amsterdam. There isn't anywhere else. So if you want to go and see him, you have to go there. So that maybe pulls it together. And yeah, I mean, I think you potentially aren't seeing that level of growth at the bottom end of the business, but at the top end, people like going to stadium events. They like arenas and they like stadium shows.
Mm. Do you think that all these gigs at the top end, do you think they have an effect on the lower ends? Is it taking money out of grassroots and the theatres?
I think you'd have to do some very serious research to be able to say that. I doubt it's taking that much out because I think that those people probably don't go to the grassroots music as much. It's a very, very different experience. I think once you get to, an event in Apollo level of gig or a Roundhouse or, a Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow or whatever it might be, you have a certain standard. If you want to sit down, you can sit down. I think particularly since COVID, people want they want an easier life to a certain extent. They want a more pleasant environment. They want, at a festival, they want better toilets. They want a higher quality of food. And in many cases, they'll pay for it. So I think standing or sitting at Tottenham or Wembley or wherever is a very different experience to going to the Shacklewell Arms. And you're not going to get that much cross, which is a good job because you wouldn't be able to fit everybody in the Shacklewell Arms. So
sometimes it feels like they're trying.
And who can blame them? Because those shows that sell out in smaller venues are probably not as common actually as selling out the big ones now. Yeah. So I think, that sort of voyage of discovery area still needs some work. Yeah. But I would hope that actually, if you're starting people younger coming to shows, and by the very nature you are taking them to bigger shows, that then they get a taste for it and they start to go on that voyage of discovery for music and, listening to Spotify, YouTube, whatever, discovering new artists and then wanting to go to clubs.
Is there any danger of the market becoming oversaturated at the top end?
Yeah, there always is. Always. And at some point, maybe it does. Maybe that is what happens. And we just have to adjust. And all things are cyclical. Right now, getting stadium availability for the next few years is really tricky. You would think that if you're trying to book, something in at Wembley or Tottenham or wherever in 2028, 2029, no problem at all. But there's a lot of acts. Everyone's now booking much earlier. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So it's harder, I think, for the venues to really be able to go, okay, we've got to say no to something. And then if the other act, if that act doesn't happen and someone else does, you may have lost that show. But that's it's a juggling act. There's not that many promoters that are playing at this very top end of the market because it's obviously hugely expensive. And I think that even amongst themselves, the promoters in conjunction with the venues are getting much better at going, okay, this really is going to happen. All the signs are there, and we won't spend quite so much time on the speculative stuff.
Yeah. Fair enough. Next up, IQ magazine reports comments from MP Alex Sobel about the government's recent decision to only file draft legislation for an anti-ticket touting bill. Sobel told the South by Southwest London conference that the government was up and down on whether to go ahead with full legislation, with discussions about how to cap platform fees likely to be a key detail in consultation on any future legislation. Emma, as an agent, were you disappointed not to see a full anti-ticket touting bill in the King's Speech?
Yeah, I think everybody was slightly disappointed about that. But I also think that, what you really want is for it to be properly thought through, and that, every possible ramification of what it means has been considered. And I have interest in other parts of life as well, and I'm seeing things that are going to be, some of them government bills, some of them regulations brought in by quangos in different parts of life, which clearly haven't been thought through, where they haven't spoken to the stakeholders, to the people that are really involved. And my concern about all of this is it shouldn't just be who shouts the loudest. There needs to be a proper committee put together of people that, work in the industry and work in consumer protection and, potentially the police who know, and, the fraud authorities who know where some of this money goes to, and really make sure it's well thought through. So is it disappointing that after all of these years and after some very positive signs, we don't really appear to be very much further forward? Yes, of course it is. I'm very happy that it's properly on the agenda, because some years ago I was involved in a meeting that we had. It was with Jeremy Hunt, and at that point it very much was, it's a free market. People can buy and sell whatever they want, and so long as it's not illegal, we're just going to let them get on with it. I think that this government and I think now most MPs actually do see much more of the downside of, the fact that there's huge amounts of money leaving the music industry, the ticketing companies, the venues, the songwriters, all of those people. And almost more importantly, that those folks that are buying, in many cases, grossly inflated tickets, inflated ticket prices, aren't even getting what they paid for. So, I urge everybody to, come together, look at what's going on, and really come up with a proper plan. Yeah, because clearly you have to be able to resell tickets. It's impossible to have a situation where you can't. Things happen. And to be honest, that it would not be reasonable to stop people reselling. But similarly, those people that are doing this on a professional basis and selling at huge profit is not acceptable.
What impact would a sort of ban on reselling for profit have, do you think, on the industry? Would it make ticket prices cheaper, or would it make them, as in the primary market, would it make them more expensive, perhaps?
I don't think that anybody at the moment prices their tickets based on what the secondary market is going to do with them. If anything, the secondary market has made everybody aware of how much people are prepared to pay for a ticket. I have a bit of an issue with people talking about real fans. And apparently real fans don't buy through the secondary market. So we have, there's a lot of discussions about we need to get it to the real fans. A real fan wants to go and see the act that they want to go and see. Everybody has different amount of money. So you're no less real if you're able to buy from a secondary site and pay 4 times the face value than you are if you can't afford to do that. So it's about trying to make sure that everybody pays the price, which is what we, the industry, have valued the ticket at. And I think, the secondary market has shown us that there are a lot of people prepared to pay a lot of money. Many people in the secondary market will say huge amount of tickets get sold at less than face value, which again is true. And no one's complaining about that. If you've got tickets and you can't go and you can't sell it for more, it's, you buy your new car, you decide you don't like it. If it's immediately not worth what you paid for it, that's life. But it's the sort of gross profiteering of it when money doesn't go back to the people that should be earning it that I have a problem with.
Fair enough. Well, we will follow up on that story. But our final one, Music Business Worldwide reports from the US on moves by Live Nation to challenge the recent antitrust verdict that the company operates a monopoly of primary ticketing in certain US states. Live Nation says the verdict should be set aside on multiple grounds, while the states have called for the remedy proposal to include the sale of Ticketmaster. Emma, we won't get into the rights and wrongs of that judgment, but you're in the live music business. Is there enough competition in the sector for you?
I think you're always looking for more competition. Live Nation are very clearly a dominant force. They're also very, very good at what they do. And Ticketmaster are very, very good at what they do. So, would it be good to see other players? Yes. Live Nation, AEG, SJM in the UK, FKP Scorpio in Germany, we can go on with other major players. You have to have a lot of money. You have to be able to prepared to lose money. And that often comes with having built up a head of steam and having the funds and the facility at the bank to sometimes go down quite a long way. So I think we have to all be very careful what we wish for. I understand why it's being looked at. I understand why it's going to be looked at in the UK. I understand why it's being looked at in America. I am no expert on American law, all of that stuff. It's an interesting thing because from an agent point of view, when you have a country that pretty much has one ticketing system, when you go on sale with a big tour, it's actually way easier to be able to control everything than when you have 7 different ticketing systems, which is what happens here. In the UK, in Europe, most venues have their own ticketing, either their own platform or they're, tied up with a Ticketmaster and Access or whoever. And so you're splitting the tickets already. So being able to watch what's happening in real time, given that shows now sell out so quickly and that everybody pretty much is doing stuff online, you want to be able to be as efficient as possible when it comes to making sure tickets are in the right places. And if you're able to open up extra areas of a venue, whatever it might be. So, yeah, competition, always healthy. Yeah. We should all be in favour of that. And I'm sure that the powers that be will have a look and they will talk to a lot of people because, again, to me, that's what the key is. It's the key with the question about secondary ticketing. It's the key with the question about, monopolies or power dynamics. Are there other people that can fill the void properly? It's easy to say you can, but will they? And, the upside for acts, and I'm not going to give an opinion as to whether it's right or wrong, but artists do well out of the fact that Live Nation and Ticketmaster are related to each other.
Yeah. I mean, there was the House of Commons committee that called for an investigation here, also said there was a climate of fear operating in the UK live business. Do you recognise that?
I'm terrified all the time.
I was going to say, I imagine you don't scare too easily, but
it depends what it is. Look, I think if you are a brand new promoter trying to get into the market, you've got no track record, you don't know anyone, it's just very, very difficult. And that's probably no different to any other business, to be honest. So I think climate of fear is a little bit extreme. And no doubt I can be now bombarded by people going, well, I'm terrified.
Don't be too scared to email you, don't it? It's okay.
I hope so. No. It does. I think sometimes everyone has a point of view and it's such a complicated ecosystem. I think that's the thing. It looks very simple on the outside, but I think when you look at how everything works together, yeah, if you take something out, something else will replace it. That's nature. But it might be painful for a little bit.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Emma. And don't forget, for even more music industry insights, sign up for the TMT newsletter at themoneytrench.com. But now it's time to talk to this week's guest, Emma Banks of CAA. Emma, you're planning the 50th anniversary Silver Clefs for the Royal Albert Hall. Get them on July the 9th.
Yeah.
How's it all going? You've got a great lineup of winners already announced.
We've got a fantastic lineup. So yeah, I mean, I was the chair of the event committee when I foolishly said yes to David Munns and took on being chair of the board of trustees. Joe Munns, David's son, there's a link, took over being the chair. So this is his second year. I think it's his second, might be his third. No, I think it's his second year of being chair of the Silver Clef Committee. We work really closely together with the rest of the team. And we're really, really excited about it. You know, going to the Albert Hall on the 50th anniversary of the Silver Clef, I think is going to be really special. We've had a great time at the Grosvenor House. We will probably be back there, who knows? But this, I think, makes it very noteworthy, you know, to be having a music industry event in one of the most beautiful and prestigious venues, probably in the world, certainly in the UK, is really special. You know, we're blessed with some incredible winners, absolutely incredible honorees of the awards this year. You know, from Pink to Lily Allen to Sam Fender to Max Richter. I mean, the list goes on, and I've now insulted people by not naming everybody. But
there's lots of other good winners.
There's lots of other amazing winners. I think we might just have a couple, you know, 2 or 3 left to announce. And anyone that wants to, if you Google Silver Clef, Nordoff and Robbins, you'll find what's going on there. But no, sales are really strong for tables. Still a few left, but going really well. Got some incredible presenters. The auction, which is obviously so important, because the main reason for doing this is to raise funds for the charity. We've got some incredible auction prizes this year, you know, and a big shout out to all of the team and Neil Warnock, Paul Samuels. Again, can't thank everybody enough for the work that they've done, because the charity sector's struggling. It's really, really hard. And, you know, Nordoff, and we've told everybody about it, we're going through, or we're just coming to the end of a period of consultation about how we restructure the organisation to really make sure that it goes another 50 years and that we don't end up spending more money than we have. You know, everything was great, and then COVID really, really hit us hard, as it hit so many other charities. And my involvement and my closer association with Nordoff over the last few years has really, you know, made me more aware of what's going on in other places as well. And there's no one that isn't struggling, that isn't being hit by this. So, you know, I think it's incumbent on myself, the board of trustees and the senior leadership team at Nordoff to make sure that we are fit for purpose, that we can afford to continue, because music therapy gives me goosebumps. When I see it in action, when I speak to the therapists or the recipients of the therapy or their parents, carers, wives, lovers, whoever, you know, we're helping people from, you know, young children, you know, 3 years old, you know, kids with autism, with learning difficulties, with cancer, with brain injuries, you know, all the way through to Alzheimer, dementia. And it's giving me goosebumps now talking about it. It's such a special thing that, you know, the music therapists who are all trained on the Nordoff and Robbins course, and that's another place that the money goes to, is the education side of things. You know, when you see somebody that for that music therapy moment, the hour a week that they maybe have, it's sometimes the only time that they actually communicate in any meaningful way with somebody, with the world around them. How can we not continue to do that. It's so important. And from my perspective, the music industry has been great to me. It really has. I've made a great living. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I keep enjoying every minute of it. It's not over yet. And this is not the music industry looking after their own as such. It's the music industry giving back to those people, at the really sharp end of need, the people that don't have the lives that we have. And if we can all, I urge people, look up Nordoff & Robbins, get in touch if you're interested in knowing more about what we do and how you can help us. This is not something that we need volunteers for particularly, because it's highly trained in the same way that you don't volunteer to be a physiotherapist or a dental hygienist. I don't need the intern poking around in my mouth, thank you. It's the same with music therapy. These are people that have done, a 2 years master's course. But if anyone has ideas for fundraisers or just wants to give us some money, whatever, in your will, give it to us now. Give it to us whenever. I'm sounding like a certain person from a long time ago.
So Bob Geldof would be proud.
I hope so. That to me would be incredible, because I know how amazing this charity is.
Yeah, well, yeah, they do amazing work. So hopefully, I'm sure the music industry will put its hand in its pocket and be there on July the 9th. But of course, you got your day job at CAA.
I know
as well.
Who knew?
I don't know how you fit it all in, but you run the office, the London office, and you've been co-head of global touring for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
As well. So how's that all going?
Great fun. Love it. I think with all things, you sort of you get on with it and you do it. And I'm blessed. Obviously, Mike Reek and I have worked together for, I think it's 36 years.
Wow.
This year. We're on a 20th anniversary of CAA in the UK, which is crazy to think. I mean, I can remember us, our moving day. I can remember all of the conversations we had about starting up here. But, we're really lucky that we've got a really great team. Everyone in the office in London, I think, gets on. It's a testament that half of them go on holiday together. So when you see that and the work that we do across the various offices in the States, in here, we've got, a presence in China, in Singapore. We've now got offices in the Middle East where, they're not necessarily booking shows out of those places, but the brand involvement, sponsorship opportunities, all of those things that come in, we're working with all of them. And I think, the strength that we have is in the communication. And so, I'm really proud to be one of the heads of our global touring, because across music and comedy and speak, it's just phenomenal. Really is.
And you're part of a trio of co-heads.
Part of a trio, yeah.
With Rick Roskin, Daryl Eaton. How does that work with three of you?
Well, I'm Mary to their Peter and Paul. That's a very old
one for the young
reference.
people.
Oh, yes. They'll all be going, what is she talking about? It works great. I mean, we've all known each other for a long time. We're all very similar. They're sort of born and bred CAA guys. I've had 2 employers in my entire career in the music industry, because starting with Ian Flukes at Wasted Talent, which then linked with Fair Warning with John Jackson and the ICM link up, that was one employment, and then CAA has been another. So I've never been someone that jumps around, whizzes around. I'm loyal to the people I work with, be they in the office and my colleagues or my clients. It's really important to me, and I care about them. So it's great. There's obviously, and anybody that works in multiple countries, multiple time zones, will understand that occasionally the frustration of needing something and it's 9 o'clock in the morning in London, and knowing that if you're lucky it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon before you can get hold of anyone in Los Angeles, is frustrating. And it works both ways. It really does. But the upside to it far outweighs the downside.
Yeah. And Lucy Dickens has just joined at CEA as well. How's that going? You two must know each other of old, I'm guessing.
I'd never heard of her, to be honest, until no. It's absolutely great. I mean, we've had a few people join us recently. So with Lucy, James Simmons also joined us. David Bradley had joined us literally weeks beforehand. Beth and Nikos came over a little bit before that as well from UTA. So we've had, for us, quite a lot of new agents. Lucy and I remember trying to persuade Lucy that she should come and be at CAA before she went to WME. And it was obviously important to her that she did it her way. But she's great. She's on a plane more than she's off a plane at the moment. And, we've known each other for a really long time. We're mates. I'm thrilled that she's part of the team here. She's got the most incredible client roster. She knows everybody. We've already been out a couple of times when she's here. I offered to drink her margaritas for her if she isn't keeping up, which is very foolish of me. But no, it's an absolute joy to have her here. And as I say, the rest of the team, they've all fitted in so well that really excited.
Yeah, it's like the Avengers of agents at CAA nowadays. But what's the secret?
Lucy will look better in the lycra than I will, that's for sure.
What's the secret to being a good booking agent for you?
I don't think there's a secret to it. I think it's about working hard. It's about listening. It's about understanding and having a plan for the artist, the client that you are representing. It's about being part of their team. It's about trust. It's about, I think, being fair. I think it's really important as an agent that you're fair on both sides. You can't just try and, steal off people. That doesn't work, because when you're trying to build a long-term career, you actually need everybody to be there for each other and part of the journey. And if you don't let promoters or festivals or whoever make any money, that's a foolish thing to do. You've obviously got to be doing the best deal for the client, for the musician or the band, whoever it might be, the comedian. But I still think, life is about being fair. It's about being reasonable. And then it's about feeling content that you've done the right thing. And obviously, as an agent, you propose deals to your clients. I don't unilaterally choose what anybody's doing. I put something together, I talk to the promoters. We discuss the best route forward. We know what's happened before. If there's any history, we know where we're trying to get to. Sometimes artists want to play bigger venues. Sometimes they want to do more small venues. What's the show going to be? Is this album a complete detour from what they've done before? Some people really, really have to sell out, and that is a catastrophe for them if they don't. There are other artists now that will be, potentially more interested in the gross, and they're not so concerned if there's a few tickets at the back that didn't get sold, because if they've maximized the revenue, then that's what's important to them. So it's really about, having an individualized plan for every artist that you work with, and making sure that they know why they're doing things. And I think that's the same whether you're, starting off and you're in your first year of playing shows. If you can go, the reason we're doing this is because the next step is that. And when you do that, that should get you to this festival or this event, or then you can, you'll be set up and you'll have done enough, and maybe we can then spread it out to some other countries, whatever it might be. But it's not just filling a date sheet. That's not what we do. Yeah. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I know you've worked with a lot of your artists from the very start, haven't you? So what's it like helping an artist get from playing the grassroots circuit all the way up to stadiums, etc. That must be...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. It's probably the thing that I get most joy from. You know, it's wonderful signing a very big act and then be part of that. But when, you know, I use Lorde for an example. You know, I first met Ella Lorde. I was in Auckland. I knew her manager, and we met at the Universal offices. She was wearing her school uniform when she interviewed me. It was the most terrifying interview. She was so smart. And it was just surreal. And I'd heard Royals and I think maybe a couple of other tracks. And she just has a presence to her. She did then. She has it in, you know, abundance now. And so from being involved from the very first show she ever played internationally up to, you know, this year where she's the first act to have sold out All Points East this year with an incredible bill that, you know, she was very involved in curating along with the AEG team. There's nothing better, really. You know, you go through the ups and downs, you get to know them, their families. You know, I've worked with TIXEL for years. And so, you know, Shah and Johnny know my parents. I know Shah's family, and there's so much more than just, oh, right, it's a gig, play this show. You know, you get invested in everybody as people. You want the best for them.
Yeah. And when you work with someone for that long, presumably there are troughs in their career as well as peaks. How do you deal with that scenario as an agent?
Well, we all have to deal with it together, don't we? It's far worse for them than it is for me, probably. You know, they're living it. They have that one career. And so I think it's about working out how you can pivot, how you don't put people into a difficult situation or bad position. You listen to what they want. And, you know, sometimes there is nothing you can do about it. You know, the world is very fickle at the moment. I think music fans can be quite fickle. And there's so much music as well. You know, if it doesn't connect, then it's very hard to get it to connect. And if you've been around a long time, you're probably in a better position because you've just got, you know, that fan base, that core fan base that are going to be with you, whatever. You may not actually do as much in the way of numbers with regard to streaming or album sales or whatever it might be, but people know you're going to do a good show. They will come and see you. You know, I think we have to be really careful that we don't overplay too many shows for artists. And if you're not making a lot of money on streaming, then obviously, you know, you want to make money. It's very easy to just keep going back to the well, and at some point it has to replenish, and you need to be able to get some pent-up demand. So easier for those artists that are globally big or have more markets than one. You know, it's very hard if you're only meaningful in Australia or the UK or wherever. Then you have to keep going back to that market maybe more than would be ideal. So, you know, it's down to people like me and managers to try and come up with smart ways as well of keeping the lights on and the ball rolling without totally, you know, sort of emptying the well so that there is nothing left back to go back to.
Yeah, interesting. And let's talk about you, because a lot of people come on this podcast and go, oh, I was completely obsessed with music as a child. You know, I was always going to work into the music industry. But you actually weren't a music obsessive growing up.
No,
right?
I wasn't. I was obsessed with ponies and I suppose to a certain extent the outdoors. And I did quite a lot of drama and debating. I was obsessed with talking, which clearly is why I'm ideal for a podcast.
It is. Thank goodness for that.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's really what I did. I went to a handful of shows. I mean, I'd never been to a club gig before I went to university. I think I'd been to see Adam and the Ants and Dire Straits.
Okay.
Quite extreme.
Yeah, interesting, eclectic taste.
Very eclectic. Dire Straits live in '85, which I believe at the time was advertised as their final tour. And I have spoken to Ed Bicknell about that on more than one occasion and said I was sold a ticket under false pretenses. Went to the Birmingham NEC with some school friends. And it was really special, but I would never in a million years have thought I'd be doing this, ever.
So how did you get into it? So it was at university you started promoting some shows? Right?
Yeah, so I did food science degree at Reading, and the drama at Reading at that point, I think it's changed a lot now, but I'd been very lucky. The school I went to, we had some incredible drama teacher, and I was doing Strindberg and Berkoff. I mean, completely obnoxious for a 16-year-old. But anyway, we were doing it, and we were doing it very dramatically, and it was fabulous. And then I got to Reading and didn't really like what they were doing, so I got involved in the RAGS organisation, which I only recently found out apparently stands for Raising and Giving. I didn't know that. Okay. And I don't know whether it's probably called something completely different now, if students even do it. But in the late 80s, when I was at university, it was peak Mrs. Thatcher time, I suppose. She hated students. She hated anybody that didn't agree with her. So there was student unions were pretty much bankrupt. And so we did all the shows. There was a guy called Neil Richards there. He was the year above me. And we became friendly. I got involved. And I generally don't do things by halves. Once I start, I can't stop. So I got involved, and then, before long was booking acts. And I got involved in everything from, selling the tickets during the weeks, making the sandwiches for the rider first thing in the morning, taking them into the uni, booking the PA and sweeping the hall afterwards. And we promoted some incredible artists at that time, and we promoted the Pogues, promoted New Order. Neil and I set up a company outside of the university, and we did some promoting outside as well. So I did one of the first Stone Roses gigs just as they were exploding. Wow. Which was incredible. A very eventful gig. And I loved it. And I enjoyed talking to the musicians. I ended up giving two of the Pogues a lift back to their hotel because they were staying in Reading for the night before they went to their next show. Everyone else was on a tour bus and their taxi never arrived. So there's me and two Pogues in my completely clapped out Ford Fiesta. And there was a spare bottle of champagne on the rider left. It was warm. I don't think we had any ice. So we went back to the Post House Hotel on the Basingstoke Road. I can see it now. And they were like, "Do you want to come in for a drink?" I was like, "Yeah." This was the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. Pop stars asking me to go and have some warm champagne with them, which we drank out of paper cups that we stole out of the coffee machine in the semi-gloom, because there was a sort of night manager, but that was it. And we just chatted. And I was like, this is so great. I want to do this.
It's a fairy tale of Reading.
It's the fairy tale of Reading, exactly.
And
so no one ever.
Yeah. So you left university, and then you became a booking agent, even though you didn't really like the booking agents that you dealt with, right?
Not all of them, no. I'd got very close with Charlie Myatt. I used to book quite a lot off him when I was at uni, and he invited me up to London, and we went basically on a pub crawl for an afternoon when I was probably supposed to be doing my finals, wasn't I, at that time, I imagine. So we've always got on really well, Charlie and I. But some of the agents were just very dismissive of you as a promoter, and were not helpful. And you realise that if you're not given any assets, and back then, we didn't have email, so you needed someone to send you a photo or whatever it might be, and then there was a lot of letraset and stenciling and photocopying, and it was all quite punk rock and rock and roll. And if you had a big show, you would get your posters professionally made at Publicity and Display in Godalming. And it was very exciting because you could choose what colour the poster was going to be. And no one was telling you what to do because it was impossible to get approvals. So it was, I want black type on a fluorescent yellow background, and that's what they would do. And it was amazing. So, but no, I thought I wanted to work at a record company probably, but no one at a record company thought that they wanted me to work for them. So I then started writing to agencies, and Ian Flukes, who had Wasted Talent, got my CV, rang me, came in. It took him about 3 months to actually give me a job. But, Mike Reek had started about a month before me. So we basically started at the same time.
Did you realise what a great working relationship that was going to be for the two of you when you met him?
No idea. How do you ever know these things? But, he took pity on this girl from the sticks who was depressed because she'd had to leave her pony behind. And, we went, the end of the first week, he took me to the New Cross venue to see Two Lost Sons. On day 2, he took me to Johnny Rockets, which was on the King's Road by the office, bought me a burger. So, how can you say no to someone that behaves as magnificently as that? Yeah. And we've been together ever since. Crazy.
Yeah. But at the time, I understand you were the only, or pretty much the only, female booking agent working in the UK.
Well, that's how it felt. Yeah. Who knows? And if anyone was doing it, and I'm sure there must have been other women doing it in other businesses, but certainly, amongst the sort of ITBs and the station agencies, I don't think there were any women. And the only two that I knew of, as I got to know things, were Barbara Skydell and Marsha Vlasic in America. And there wasn't anybody else. Certainly, if I went out, there were very few women doing A&R or any of those things. So, Emma Greengrass, who's now managing with Ian McAndrew, she was in A&R at the time. She was A&R. I think, she did plugging, I think, before that. But I think at that point she was in A&R. But there were very few other females. It happened relatively quickly that we got more. But I think when we joined with Fair Warning, there were no female agents there either.
Okay, yeah. And I guess life on the road was pretty different back then as well. What was it like being the only
with the
woman?
horse and carriage?
yeah, no tour buses yet. But
no power, no. The internal combustion engine hadn't been invented.
But the bands were probably not quite so well behaved back then, were they, as they are nowadays?
Maybe not. But I might not have been as well behaved either, so I'm very pleased I was there then.
What were you up to, Emma?
I couldn't even tell you without having to kill you. But it was great fun. It really was great fun. It was much looser. It was a much easier time. It wasn't as big business as well. We obviously started this discussion talking about very big business and that roll up of companies that has become Live Nation or AEG or, Eventim, Superstruct with all their festivals. That just wasn't happening. So we were dealing directly with, Tim Parsons and Stuart Galbraith and Maurice Jones at MCP, based in the Midlands, who were probably at that point the biggest promoter in the UK. But there were also people like Barry Marshall and Barry Clayman and Harvey Goldsmith, who were big players back then. And, in many cases, there were 1 or 2 promoters per country. I remember doing the U2 tour in 1991, and they played in Lisbon in 91 or 92, I think, and that was the first time that Ian Flukes had ever booked a show in Portugal.
Wow.
You think about that. You think about the fact that the Berlin Wall hadn't been down that long, and most people hadn't been to they hadn't been to the East. So we did a Kraftwerk tour in probably 1991. It was very, very early in my booking career. And we played Leipzig. And it was a whole different world, really. Now, Leipzig, Dresden, it's all part of the touring map, and it's all the same. But then you could really feel, when I remember checking into the hotel and going, oh gosh, they think I'm the enemy, because their experience had not been of people from the West coming in. Gosh, it's actually weird talking about it and thinking about how much the world has actually changed.
Fantastic stuff. Well, thanks, Emma. Please stick around for latest or greatest, which is coming right up. And if you're enjoying The Money Trench, supported by SOUNDON and TIXEL, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice, as it really does help us keep making this podcast. But now it's time for our quickfire round with our guest, Emma Banks of CAA. Emma, this is called Latest or Greatest. You can decide to talk about either the most recent or the all-time best music biz thing that you've experienced in these categories. And we start with the latest or greatest record that you've bought.
So I'm actually not going to answer your question properly. But because for me, the greatest record I bought was probably the first record I bought, because it did set me on a journey. You know, while I wasn't going to a lot of shows, I was into music and I did buy lots of records. And I think it's an important moment in your life. The first time that you go into the shop, and I had to order it because the local shop where I lived wasn't a record shop. It sold Hoovers and lawnmower. It was sort of electricals, and then it had a record shop bit attached to it. And the first single that I ever bought was Leif Garrett, I Was Made for Dancing.
What a tune.
Such a tune. It's such a tune. And, you know, it introduced me to a world of spandex and roller skates and pop music. And I don't even dare think when that song came out. But I think that was the first ever single that I bought. And so for me, that's one of the greatest things I bought. I don't know where it is now. It might be somewhere at my parents' house, and at some point in my future, I may find it. But yeah, it makes me smile still.
Okay, well, that's good. This was going to be a tough one for you. The latest or greatest gig or festival that you've been to.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get out much, do you?
I don't get out much. And I'm so lucky that I've been to so many incredible things. So I'm giving you two answers to this. I just don't stick to the script, and I apologize.
Fair enough.
So an incredible festival, and I'm terrible because I can't remember what the festival's called, even though it still exists. It's in Perpignan in France, and it's at a sort of chateau, and I had Arcade Fire play there. I couldn't tell you when. It feels like yesterday. It's probably 10 years ago. It might be 12, who knows? And the reason it was so spectacular is I'd gone the night before. We'd all gone for dinner. It was beautiful evening, fantastic hotel. We ate lovely food. We had a great time. Next day, we all go to the festival, and the storm clouds start rolling in, and Arcade Fire go on stage. And I do think they are one of the most incredible live bands that you can ever see. They make me feel it's so great to be alive. And the rain started, and the thunder started, and the lightning started, and they're standing playing Wake Up and No Cars Go, and it felt biblical. It felt absolutely biblical. And everybody, all the grown-ups were trying to get them off stage, because it's not a good idea to be on a stage with all that going on when you've got electrical instruments, and they were literally fighting against it. In the end, common sense prevailed. They came off, but they kept playing, and they walked through the crowd, and then they went up onto the balcony outside the dressing rooms, and they kept playing, and the rain eventually stopped. And it was just such a special moment. Yeah. And the rain didn't matter. The whole thing just felt like it was us against the world. So that was a really, really special festival.
Sounds amazing.
It was. It was absolutely incredible. Beautiful surroundings. The whole thing was amazing. And then, do you know what was really special for me? Was going to Glastonbury last year. I hadn't been to Glastonbury since pre-COVID. But just because every Glastonbury weekend I had a different stadium show playing that I needed to cover. It was, Green Day, Chili Peppers, whoever in stadium shows. And I went last year and I had a hip replacement in 2021, which is the best thing I've ever done for myself. And before that, for about 10 years, I didn't realize that everyone didn't feel like this, but walking around Glastonbury was excruciatingly painful just for my hip. And so I would literally I would cover the acts that I needed to cover or the artists I really wanted to see. And then I would go back to the shared house that I have with friends down there and would literally neck painkillers and put myself to bed. And it was just torture. And I went to Glastonbury last year and I walked and I had incredible artists playing, the 1975 were playing, Charlie XCX was playing, Brandy Carlisle was playing, a whole host of amazing artists. And I was able to enjoy it. And it reminded me of my early years of going to Glastonbury and, the Levellers playing or whoever. And it was much smaller and it was much simpler, but it had that joy back for me again. And my recommendation to anybody that thinks it's normal to have excruciating pain in your hips or your knees or whatever is go and see a doctor because they can help you.
Okay, sound advice. Advice. Your latest or greatest music biz boss?
I think Rob Stringer is fantastic.
Okay, yeah.
I love Rob. Now, it could be that I have orange tinted spectacles because we're both Luton fans.
Well, I was going to point out the connection.
There is that connection. And, we didn't grow up that far away from each other. And I think he won the MITS award the year before me. But I think
the only trophy Luton have ever retained.
Exactly. That's so true. But I think that what Rob has done, through his career is remarkable. And, the fact that he's now out there in America, the boss man of Sony, that is going so well, but he still cares so deeply about the music and about the artists. And, you'll see him at a Manic Street Preachers gig still. He still does that. He will be at Glastonbury next year without fail because that's what he loves. He absolutely loves it. And I think that's just an amazing thing to have that passion for so long, because he's now well into his 80s as well. And to be that old and to still love it is really important. He's given me some great advice over the years. He's also given me some appalling advice over the years, but I'm really lucky to consider him a friend. And I think that he's done incredibly well.
Excellent. We might have to get BBC verified on the case with the age claim there. But the latest or greatest mistake that you've made?
Oh, going to see On a Friday at the Jericho Tavern, very, very early doors for me as an agent, and going, nah, I don't think so. I don't get this.
Oh, whatever happened to
They're
those
not
guys?
that good. and then, going, oh, okay. Yeah, it was just the name I didn't think worked. So yes, for those that don't know, On a Friday was the early incarnation of Radiohead, one of my favourite artists. And how I missed that, I really don't know. I give myself a slap every couple of weeks on that one. But it was lovely. So Flea from the Chili Peppers has made an incredible jazz album, Honora, and he played Coco last week, and Tom York is on that album and came and played. And it was, one of the songs particularly was just magical. But should have known better. Didn't.
You can't win them all.
No, you can't.
Win them all. So you didn't get to work with Radiohead, but the latest or greatest artists that you have worked with?
Well, again, this is an impossible question because I don't work with them if I don't think they're great. So therefore, I would have to give you a very long list. So I am going to name check the Velvet Underground, who I was lucky enough, Ian Flukes, when I joined Wasted Talent, was Lou Reed's agent. and he got me involved. And in late 92, the band Velvet Underground decided they were going to reform. And so I was involved in booking that tour. And they released a live album in, I think it was 93, from their show at the Olympia in Paris. And I have a credit on that album, which to me is just incredibly special. Every credit is special. To know that you've played a part in somebody's career and they think it was good enough to put your name on something when no one's going to buy it because of that is obviously important. But the Velvet Underground, they're such an important act. I think what they did and what they achieved and the legacy that they left in so many ways is so important. So I'm picking that as a great artist that I worked with.
I think that'll do. Emma, yeah, no, not a bad shout. The latest or greatest music industry party that you've been to?
Well, of course, I can't remember them because they were so good. That's, if you can remember the party, it wasn't good enough, was it?
You weren't there.
You weren't there. Well, you literally don't know how you got home. I do remember an incredible night after a crowded house gig in Dublin, so this would have been in the 90s. And we went to Lily's Bordello, which was the place that everybody went to hang out after the gigs. And I was there with all the crowdy guys. And Michael Hutchence came. He was going out with Helena Christensen. He was there, and a couple of other people. And it just blew my mind. It really did. I'd been, I was a huge Crowded House fan anyway. And the fact that we'd done so well, I can't remember if it was on Woodface or a different album, but Woodface, they'd come in and played the Borderline, which was 275 capacity, and they'd ended up on that run selling out Wembley Arena. So that was pretty spectacular for someone that hadn't been doing this very long. And then to be with Michael Hutchence, and I was a massive INXS fan, which I got reminded of as I was watching the Kylie documentary on Netflix, which is such a good documentary. It really is. It's so honest and so raw and doesn't shy away from anything. And is every single part of Kylie's life. And then, of course, it isn't, because otherwise I'd still be watching it. It wouldn't get into 3 episodes. But, watching her and Michael, Kylie and I'm a couple of months older than Kylie, but when you've followed somebody their entire career, even though I haven't worked with her for all of it, it just brings back so many memories. Yeah. So, but no, that was a very cool party. There's been loads of others and I can't remember them. And I'm very proud of that.
Fair enough. That's what the 90s was all about. But
not only the 90s, my friend.
Well, true. And we can't let you go without giving us a new music tip. You're always out seeing new artists as well as big artists, aren't you? Anything good caught your eye lately?
I think Elle Coves is worth a look, for sure. She is managed by Conor O'Donoghue and she's got something about her. She's got the most incredible sort of backstory, Spanish parents, born in Germany, now lives in Ireland. Very talented musician, got some really great songs. It's really early days. She's done a few supports, done a few bits and pieces, but excited about her. Excellent. But I mean, we're really blessed. We've got an incredible roster of new artists, and picking anybody out is, it's always a hard one. So if anyone needs a longer list, you can ask me.
Excellent. Well, we will check her out. But that sadly is all we have time for. A big thank you to our guest, the legend that is Emma Banks. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
The Money Trench, the music industry podcast with me, Mark Sutherland, is supported by SOUNDON and TIXEL and in support of Earth%. It's produced by Take Notes and exec produced by Mike Walsh, with huge thanks to Sennheiser, The Fourth Pillar, and our friends at Deviate Digital for our social media. The Money Trench music is by the brilliant Tom A. Smith, and to get in touch with us, please email mike@themoneytrench.com. There's another big week coming up. It's Indie Week out in New York. The Music Cities Convention hits Hull. The AI Summit is on in London. Summer party season arrives with Warner Music's Bash. The Songwriters Hall of Fame ceremony is on. Download Festival is here. and the World Cup kicks off. Plus, there are big gigs from Mac DeMarco, FKA Twigs, Olivia Dean, Marmozets and Harry Styles. And TMT will be back with another podcast for a sushi restaurant, with a brand new episode dropping on Monday, June the 15th, starring another golden boy or girl from the music industry. We will see you then, and Emma, we will see you at the Silver Clefs in July.
Absolutely. See you there.
Cheers.